Hello
Yes,
and hi to everybody. Welcome to a platform, Solve the Unresolved. And I think this is our sixth webinar, right?
Yeah,
We have been getting a good responses post our webinar. In fact, some of our entrepreneurial friends who have been online interacting with us have shown interest to take certain discussions forward. It's quite exciting. And based on specific requirements coming to us, uh, people have been talking about funding. People have been talking about new business structures. Uh, we have talked about the new generation taking up from the previous generation into businesses. And there have been much talked about topic, what's the value of my business consistently? And there have been debates and there have been different discussions. And while we have been all consulting and interacting with various companies across the last 1 decade, there has been obviously a lot of work and a lot of queries and a lot of discussions around the word called valuation. So we thought it's very important. We should at least discuss briefly on valuation as very, very important for people to understand. I will not get into too much of details into it, and I welcome you to running a business from the valuation perspective, a very important topic for today. With me, I have two gentlemen, Mr. Ravindra Goyal and Mr. Rajiv Bhargav. Let me introduce them once again to you. Mr. Goyal, himself an entrepreneur and the founder of Venetia e-business. He himself has spent more than 2.5 decades in running his own business operations, educating and coaching young generations across the country, managing franchise operations, and as today he is driving parallelly, I am putting it up front, at least three businesses which are technology enabled. And he brings in a lot of experience and knowledge with him. And I'm sure he will be adding a lot of value to this session today. With us today, our guest speaker is Mr. Rajiv Bhargav. Welcome, Rajiv, to this session. Rajiv is a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He is a fellow member of Institute of Company Secretaries, a law graduate, and also a registered valuer with IBBI. He is an active speaker at IICA, IMA, All India Institute of Valuers Foundation. Rajiv has an experience of well over 16 years in various aspects of finance, taxation, compliances, and he has worked on various assignments across diverse verticals and have served clients ranging from multinationals, global multinationals to smaller enterprises. He has worked with entities like McAfee of Italy, S. Oliver of Germany, Etron in US, and Orient Craft, to name a few. And at present, he has taken an initiative to start his own venture, R. Bhargav and Associates. To start off with, I would request Mr. Goyal to share his thoughts. Mr. Goyal, please.
thank you, Sandeep. Hello, entrepreneurs. I welcome you all in our sixth webinar on behalf of Panacea eBiz Consulting Group's forum, Resolve the Unsold. Today's topic is somehow very much relevant to the younger generation as well as the my generation. I can say now I count myself in the previous generation, not the current generation. So I am looking this topic with a different angle, and because Rajiv Bhargav is technical on this part, so I'm just sharing that how we have transformed since 1887 around, and how we have reached and where we are now. So if you all probably know, the BSc was founded way back in 1875 under a banyan tree. It was started by with a group of people, but actually it was August 31st, 1957, when the BSc became the first stock exchange to be recognized by the Indian government. like NSE, which is now more popular, on the other hand, was founded in 1992 and started trading in 1994. If you look at the purpose behind setting up the business in industrial era, it was for profit from the business itself, what we call profit from the operations, and with the core objective of running it through multiple generations. It was not set up with any other intention, but with the focus that the new generation will take over the family business and it will continue as they go along. After evolution of stock trading, promoters found another way to acquire profits and raise capital from the market. In the industrial era, most of the investment used to come from the promoters and from the bank loans or some probably some other way, but not from the public. So this stock trading has given them a new way of raising capital. I found that the first modern IPO occurred in March 1602 when the Dutch East India Company offered shares of the company to the public in order to raise capital. The first recorded event belongs to 1602. So this is not something what we are talking today. It happened in past, but probably things are not that popular. And if we go with respect to India, the Reliance is the first company which gone to public, and they went public in 1977, and even before the SEBI was formed. So, like Dhirubhai Ambani had a different mindset altogether, much before the time, and he could do it. The concept of merger and acquisition in India also was not popular until the year 1988 because of the regulatory and prohibitive provisions of MRTP Act 1969. In India, we used to safeguard the businesses from being hostile takeovers. If we talk about the earliest reported mergers in India was Bengal Iron and Steel Company Limited with Indian Iron and Steel Company in 1936, and acquisition of Bukhari Tea Company Limited by Bishnoth Tea in 1965. These are two earliest mergers I could find out on the internet. The first wave of corporate deal making in India started in 1980s. The year 1988 witnessed one of the oldest business acquisition by Savraj Paul to overpower DCM Limited and Escorts Limited. Other corporate traders were Manu Chhabria and RP Goenka. I'm sorry to take names, but this is a listed information on internet. Further to that, many other non-resident Indian had put in their efforts to take control over various companies through their stock exchange portfolios. So 1980s basically saw this happening where these kind of events takeovers started. With this era came a wave of new mindset, setting up businesses not for profit but for the valuation, to earn not from the operations but from the selling out the equity. Instead of taking loans, raising capital from market via IPOs or private investors became a buzzword. Dear friends, I welcome Rajiv, who will be speaking on running a business from the valuation perspective. It will probably give us some good insights to reorient our business modeling and also may add another dimension to our thought process. Thank you for listening. I request Sandeep to take this further. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Should I start, sir? Thank you, Ravinder ji. Thank you, Sandeep ji, for giving me this opportunity to interact with the participants. Thank you, all the participants who have joined us this afternoon to have this discussion on valuation, running a business from valuation perspective. To start the discussion, first of all, the center point is that whenever we ask, means whoever is doing any business always want to evaluate whether my business is doing good or if my business needs some improvement. So every time, whether it is today's times or the past times, people used to evaluate their business. So if I want to evaluate my business, I will check whether, means if I ask somebody if your business is doing good as per your expectation, or if it is not doing good as per your expectation, most of the times the answer comes like, look, my profit is this much, so I think my business is doing good. Or sometimes people say that my turnover is increasing, so my business is doing good. Sometimes people evaluate like, my size, my number of employees, my offices, number of offices are increasing, my production capacities are increasing. But many a times we do not evaluate our business from the valuation. Whereas when we talk about big corporates, we say that, look, Reliance is so successful, they are having a market cap of this much, or that company was able to achieve this much of market cap, so they are into top 100 or top 50. Whereas in general, we ignore the perspective of understanding the business evaluation from a valuation perspective. Of course, this trend is changing because nowadays businesses are not as stable, and they do not work in a more secured environment as they were able to work before. Now the environment is more dynamic in nature. Changes are happening very fast. The changes were happening in a decade are now happening in a year. Sometimes some new product comes and the business. Not only this, so there are so many threats available to the businesses. They might be looking for an exit, they might be looking for a succession planning, they might be looking for a business combination, they might be looking for achieving the growth by acquiring new businesses. So a lot of factors are there today, which makes it important for a business to look at the business valuation. And I have experienced that many a times these deal also do happen. Means a business is getting acquired or a business is getting investment, but the business owner says that, look, I do not know, I know that this guy is going to invest in my business, whether I'm making a good deal or not, because I don't know what is the value of my business, and am I issuing the shares to this person at a premium or discount? Am I losing out of this deal or am I making profit out of this deal? Secondly, a problem comes that, so long a business owner was doing business without any perspective of valuation, and they might not realize that certain decisions that they have been taken in the past is affecting their valuation negatively. So of course profit is important. We are not undermining the importance of profits. Of course profits are important, and of course a business gets a valuation because somebody expect the business to earn profits in future. Even the companies which have never made any profits nowadays, you can see a lot of e-commerce companies which have never made any profits in the past, they are also getting their high valuation because somebody expect them to be profitable in future. So even though they are not profitable today, we expect them to be profitable in future. But there are various factors which, if we look into those factors and we plan our business in that way, then we can probably achieve a better valuation, or we can understand how our valuation are getting derived to avoid any dissatisfaction or disappointment at the later stage. So many of the factors which influence the valuation of a business, we are trying to cover up and capture some of those factors in this session, so that business owners gets an insight that whenever they are making certain decisions, they might be those decisions might be affecting their valuations. So basically, all those factors could be actually classified into two categories. One is the quantitative categories, like which can be quantified easily, which can be calculated in terms of an Excel model, or which can be calculated from the balance sheet of the company. Another factors could be qualitative, which are not so easy to quantify, but those qualitative factors also influence your valuations, and that is also relevant. So I'll start with some of the quantitative factors which you can quantify, which you can improve in your business, and then I will discuss some of the qualitative factors which might influence your valuation. So for example, we are looking at the profits, but we do not realize the fact that a business gets a high value because of its capacity to generate cash. it is not getting the value because of the profits. It is getting the value because of its capacity to generate cash in future. So if I am making investment in a company, I am looking at how much cash this company is capable of generating in future. So how much cash it is capable of generating in future, of course, depends on its profitability, but not solely on its profitability. So it might be a case that the company is not profitable, but because of the working capital efficient management and other factors, it might not be that bad. Of course, profits are necessary, but two companies with the same profits might be having different valuations because of their different efficiency of utilization of their money. So one company might be having a higher utilization in working capital. So another company might be more efficient usage of working capital. So those two companies might be having a very different valuations altogether, because the cash generation out of those two companies might be very different. It might be possible that if further expansion could be into different, you have the opportunity to invest into different product mix, and all those different product mix might be having the similar profitability, but one of the product mix is actually needing more capital requirement for you. So the product mix which is having a higher capital requirement might drag your valuation down. So many a times when we decide on the product mix, also we are keeping that in mind, whether my it is having a negative effect on my valuation or positive effect on my valuation. Sometimes we take certain decisions, for example, having some of the capacity in house and outsourcing some of the functions to outside parties, outsource certain functions which are non critical functions, and that we are achieving some more efficiency in our capital utilization. So ultimately, I'm not saying always outsourcing is good, but in certain situations it might happen that I am able to achieve a more efficient utilization of my capital. So basically, I've invested some money in my business. The more I can achieve with that capital is the more value I can create for the owners of the company, that is the equity shareholders. So all those factors are very critical when we are running a business. So I can keep on naming these kind of examples. There could be n number of examples. So whenever we are managing our cash flows, because sometimes people think that, look, by making some accounting estimates or accounting entries or changing the accounting policies, you can have a better valuation. So that generally doesn't happen. Those are valuation neutral actions, because ultimately by making a different kind of a depreciation provision, or by making a different kind of a inventory valuation, my cash flow doesn't change. My cash flow cannot be easily, you cannot easily manipulate your cash flows, but the way you are doing your business, the way you are conducting your business, you might influence your cash flows. So one critical point I want to highlight is that instead of profits, we need to start focusing on cash flows. Is that how much cash flows my business can generate in future? So the capacity of my business to generate cash flows in future is a very important thing. So that's an important point. Another important point could be that suppose I give you a choice that you have to invest into a company, and there are multiple companies which will give you the similar amount of return, similar cash flows they will give you, but all these different companies have a different risk. So as an investor, you will choose the company which has the minimum risk. You will not choose the company which has a higher risk. So ultimately, all investors want to choose a company with a minimum risk. And we are only focusing on profits, but we are not focusing on how to minimize the risk of my business. If you are having the same profits while minimizing the risk of your business, you might achieve a better valuation. So there are techniques to minimize your risk of the business. First of all, we need to identify what all that are there in the business. And that is not only relevant from an investor perspective. When an investor will come, you are already an investor in your business. So whatever is relevant for an incoming investor for your business is also relevant for you as an owner of that business, because you are already invested in your business. So in that case, understanding what could be increasing the risk for my business and how can I mitigate, or how can I reduce my risk. Of course, risks are inherent in any business. You cannot minimize it to zero, but it might be that the business risk can be minimized to a certain extent. Even if you minimize your risk by 10%, your valuation might increase to a large value. So understanding the business risk is also important factor. Sometimes what happens that even in during corona times, you might have experienced that some of the companies collapsed soon and some of the companies were able to survive. So why in the same business some of the companies are not able to survive and some of the companies were able to not only survive, and they are still in a comfortable position? Because of the reason, some of the companies were too much highly financially leveraged companies. So the owners equity was very low and they have taken a huge debt to fund their business, to expand their capacities, and they kept on expanding their capacities. So they know that, they understand that even by expanding the capacity might be able to achieve a little bit extra income, but at the very high cost, because the risk has increased tremendously for their business. So sometimes it might be a intelligent decision not to expand too much, or to be careful about how much do you expend, and or probably to find the equity partner at the right stage. So if I know that I'm running too risky business, if I the opportunities in my business are too heavy and I want to expand so fast, then why to look out for an investor later on when my business is already very risky? So why not look out for an investor today so that business has an optimum level of debt and equity? So this is also another important factors. So first point I highlighted is that not only do your business from a profit perspective, look out for the cash flows also, and how you can optimize, how you can improve your cash flows. Another point that I want to emphasize is look out for the risk. Look out whatever you are doing. Look out where you are increasing the risk for your business. Maybe that by just having a flexible contracts, you can reduce the risk for your business. Like for example, you have a fixed contract with a client and the prices may go down or up. You have a flexible pay component for your employees. That might also reduce your risk, because in case of downtimes, you are able to survive on your fixed. You will only pay fixed component, and flexible component depends on the performance of the company. So big companies have the fixed and flexible component and all those kind of things. So these are few examples, and there could be a lot of examples through which a company exposed to the foreign currency risk, they are not doing any hedging, or they are not having any risk management policy for that risk. So all those could be some examples where we are having a high risk situation in the company. And if we are having a high risk situation in the business, or for example, one could be an example that we are having a too heavy capital expenditure, that our break even point is very high and we are into seasonal industry. So that could be some of the examples where if we are concerned, if we are careful about how to manage the risk, we might be able to get a better valuation for our business. No investor wants to invest in a business with a high risk. No investor would want to. So, and you being an owner of an organization, already you are invested in your business, then you are also equally concerned. You should be equally concerned that how much is there in my business. So that is second factor, that I should try to minimize my risk. So first is the cash flows. Second is the risk that we have to minimize. The lesser is the risk, the is going to be the valuation for the business. Then third could be a more efficient use of capital. So, for example, I might be using some unproductive investments. There might be some inventory which is not usable, and I'm just not bothering to sell it out. There might be some contracts which I should be able to negotiate in a better way, and I can reduce my inventory requirement. There might be a number of situations where I can achieve a higher turnover with the existing resources. How can I use my existing factory to achieve a higher turnover? How can I use my existing machinery to achieve a business? So every penny invested in the business should be properly utilized. Even though I'm just buying a luxury car might reduce my valuations because I'm making an unproductive investments, or I am making some investments in some land and building which is not making a big sense, which is I'm just making as an investment for real estate perspective, but might be having a dent on my valuation. So that is a third point, that we should focus on making a more efficient use of our invest money that we have invested in our business. So that is also very important point. The next point could be having a better growth in my business. So maybe that two companies are having the same turnover, but one company might be having a higher growth potential. Another company might be having a lower growth potential. So how there could be different growth potential of those companies is because company A is getting most of its turnover from one or two customers. So their potential of increasing the the offerings to their existing customers is limited. Company B is having a exposed to a larger number of customers. The kind of relationship or the kind of contracts that they have created, or it could be like company A is not reinvesting in their business. They are taking out investments and they are not able to achieve a higher growth. Company B is reinvesting more into their and then they are able to achieve more in terms of the growth. Sometimes you might be into different segments. One company might be into different segments, and those different segments might be having a different growth rate. So focusing on the segments which might be giving you a better growth rate might create a better valuation for your business. So because the higher is the growth rate, the higher is the their cash expectation. The key is that valuation of my business of what I have done in the past. I get the valuation of my business of what I am capable of doing in the future. Because what is past is past. That might give a comfort to my investor that look, they have a past performer, so they might be able to perform in. But whenever an investor is giving me a value, they are giving me a value because of their expectation of my future, and future expectation depends much I can grow in my business, and that also could depend on a lot of factors, a lot of qualitative or quantitative factors. What is my business strategy, how I plan to take up my future growth and all those things. And am I achieving all my growth by making a heavy investment, or I was able to create a situation where I do not need to make a heavy capital investment to be able to grow. And that's the reason, suppose a manufacturing organization, why they are not getting so much high valuations, whereas these e-commerce companies are getting a high valuation. The reason is for Tata Steel to double its turnover, they have to establish another plant. They have to invest a whole lot of money in capex, and a manufacturing company has to invest a lot of uh, make a lot of capital investment, which will make some cash to get burned. The cash has to first, and then they are able to double their capacities. Whereas some business strategies or some business models are such that they can become 10 times without making much of an investment. So of course different businesses are different. So a manufacturing concern might not be able to achieve the efficiency of an e-commerce company in this aspect of a growth perspective, but they can still, by applying some scientific methods and techniques, they can still influence their growth to some extent. And among their peers, amongst the companies in their same industry, some companies you would find are growing faster, some companies you will find are growing lesser. So that depends on how management is able to achieve the growth in future. Many of times people structure their business in a way that every additional growth in turnover need a huge investment, and you have achieve your higher growth with lesser investments, then obviously your valuation is going to be better. So these are few points. uh,
Rajiv,
Another,
interrupt you. Can you repeat because the internet, I think.
And
Uh,
yes sir.
if you can repeat the previous sentence.
Yes. So, sir, basically, first part I highlighted is the cash flows. I'm just again and again repeating those points so that the key takeaways are actually, registered in the mind. I know that entrepreneurs are always so busy, firefighting a lot of things, and many of the terminologies or words that I'm using, they might not be all familiar with that. So that's why I'm repeating and emphasizing on it, that first of all they need to focus on cash flows in addition to the profits. Another point I highlighted is that they should try to see minimize the risk in their business whenever they are taking their decisions, business decisions. Third point I highlighted is that they should try to make a maximum use of their capital. They need to try to optimize their investment. Means I should try to find out methods to achieve more with the less amount of capital, not to make any unproductive investment, not to, sometimes it might happen that I am making a part production myself and I am outsourcing some of the functions. Sometimes it might happen that I am having some activities outsourced, for which I am avoiding a huge capital investment, and I am able to double my capacity without much of an investment. So I'm achieving two things at the same time. One is I have optimized my investment. Second is that I have reduced my risk, because in case I have a lesser business, then I will be able to utilize my factory, and the contractor, I am only paying them whatever I'm getting done from them. Of course, there could be some key functions which I cannot outsource, and which I need to do in house, but I need to think, I need to evaluate, even with the contracts with the parties, what kind of contracts I am having with other parties, with employees. i'm I can try to have a situation where I'm having using more of my investment. That's the reason you see, like LG, they want their suppliers to provide them supplies just in time.
Right.
They say that, we don't want to keep any inventory. Why can't they keep the inventory? Because they know, they understand the importance of highly efficient use of capital. They might be paying some premium for having the just in time, because the vendor is keeping that inventory for them, vendor is taking that risk, vendor is actually manufacturing first and then supplying later, so cost of holding inventory, so they are okay with that. Sometimes they are, the cost that they are saving is higher, and they are able to achieve a bigger growth. So that is one factor. Now next comes the growth rate. So the growth rate, we should try to increase the growth rate of our business, and that could be achieved by focusing more on the business mix, which gives a better return. Also we might be able to reinvest more and avoid unproductive expenditure. And then we should try to reduce the cost of our capital, whether it is borrowing or whether it is equity gets reduced if we minimize the risk. Borrowing, obviously, with a better negotiation with our banks, getting the credit rating up. Now, obviously, if I am running my business in a very risky way, then obviously my cost of debt will also be high. Bank will also analyze that, look, your credit rating is not good, even though they are doing it internally. They are internally assessing my business. They are saying that, you know, your business looks to be risky, so my cost of debt is going to be higher. Instead of that, if I can plan my operations in a way that I can reduce the risk, I would be able to negotiate with the banks and reduce my cost of debt also. So the lesser is the cost, the higher is the valuation. So the cost of debt, risk, whatever goes low, the valuation is going to be higher. So these are mostly the quantitative factors. I just gave few examples, but there could be n number of examples, n number of methods. When we actually work with the company in more detail, we identify a lot of areas where improvements could be possible, and they are able to achieve a better valuation. But the focus on these parameters is very important. Now, second portion is actually qualitative factors. So qualitative factors cannot be measured so accurately. So for example, I can say that your cost of capital is this much, but whether your strategy is means how much is the rating of your business strategy, it's difficult to tell. Because that cannot be, you know, scientifically measured on a particular scale. But saying that because it cannot be measured it is not relevant will be incorrect, because business strategy is very important. So what is your business strategy? A poor business strategy or a poorly executed business strategy may kill a business or make it uncompetitive. So what is the strategy? Are you focusing on cost efficiency? Are you focusing on niche business? Are you focusing on innovative products? Or you are focusing on anything? Because there has to be some strategy. Then only the business will be able to command a very high value. Second could be, second qualitative factors could be, sometimes, you know, the quality of key employees also becomes very important. So business financials are good, but you see the manpower, you don't get satisfied. So when somebody is making investment in your business, they are actually making investment in your key employees as well. And the quality of hirings, the quality of people that you hire is very important. And many a times what happens, investor meet the management, investor talks to the management, they get the information about the key employees, and they find that, look, they their financials are good, but somehow the team behind this whole setup is not deep enough to actually command this kind of a value. So hiring need to be very careful. Key employees are good. And then what is your customer exposure? What is your customer geographic exposure? What kind of customers you are your customers satisfied? What is your what is the general feedback of your customer? Imagine somebody is looking into investing in a hotel, and he finds that all over the net, he finds that everybody is, you know, crying a lot about the stay experience that they had. So customer feedback was not so easily accessible before. Now customer feedback is very easily accessible. Even the employees feedback on Glassdoor, even the Google search, you search the company and what you find about that company, those things also matter. Sometimes the company was involved in some scandal in the past, and that affects their investment. Everything is good, but investor says that, look, we actually searched on Google and we found this and this about your company. So, you know, you have done that. So suddenly you find that those things actually have affected a lot of your valuation. So what is your corporate governance? It pays. People say that, you know, Tata has a very good corporate governance. So definitely Tata gets a premium because of that good corporate governance. In the same size of company, if there is a poor corporate governance, if their policies are not good, then again that company will get discounted because of that, because their corporate governance, their standards, SOPs, standard operating procedures, even if a company has a well documented processes, reduces the risk, and creates a better comfort to any investor in that company. So those small things, people feel that getting SOP is something a big company can only do. No, that those times have changed. Even a small company can have an SOP. So we have developed SOPs for many SMEs also. So lot of SMEs can also develop this, because SOP is not for getting some ISO certificates or something. It is for you to get a better efficient operations in your business. So that is important. In fact, sometimes what happens, the quality financial statements also relevant. Not just what is your profit, the way it is presented, the way it is disclosed, the way all the accounting policies are disclosed. Uh, the more disclosures, the more your accounting policies are in compliance with law, the better comfort it gives. Sometimes an investor might say that, look, I am comfortable, but I do not find this balance to strong enough to be relied upon. So they feel uncomfortness. So even the quality of financial statements matters. So all those things, and the quality of their products, the how much quality controls they are having, so all those qualitative factors are also equally relevant in having a valuation of a company. So these are most of the factors which a company can keep in mind, an entrepreneur can keep in mind their business from a valuation perspective. So this is more of the summary that I have in presentation today. Entrepreneurs would find key points would be useful for their business in running a business, getting a good valuations. Over to you, sir.
So, thank you, Rajiv. Thank you. It was great to listen to you and understand. There were many aspects which you covered, and obviously each of them are quite exhaustive, right?
Yes, sir.
Quite exhaustive, and in fact, it's very important, which we have faced with every organization while we have been interacting on acquisition mergers, as Mr. Goel shared before. His or her own organization as they are venturing into trying to understand the valuation of a company. And Rajiv, you rightly focus on many aspects. Just to bring you in, Mr. Goel, Mr. Goel, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm Dharmacham.
Hello.
Yeah, you're audible.
As we were listening to Rajiv, focusing on the qualitative and quantitative, and why I wanted to bring you in, while you are part of the discussion, you yourself have been an entrepreneur and a businessman consistently. Now, just if you can share your bit of experience to add on the qualitative aspect of which Rajiv shared with us at a later portion of his viewpoints. Would you like to point out something?
Yeah, you see, like when we started our journey way back in 1992, so the
Right.
objectives were different.
Huh.
We did not have that line at that time, the start with end in mind. So
Absolutely.
the today's generation, I feel they know what they're getting into and what probably they are looking at from the business. Now, like the previous generation, if we talk about, the biggest problem is when they started the business, their thoughts were different, and now as the era is changing, uh, they are looking for newer versions of their business and themselves.
Absolutely.
The biggest challenge I feel is that they do not come forward and involve professionals who can guide them. Like getting into valuation is not a one day job, as probably Rajiv has mentioned. It's a whole time effort. Like you have to do it continuously for 3 to 5 years if the business is running for long, and you have to bring up the values what an investor must be looking at. And Second is the perspective what promoters are carrying is they don't treat themselves as an investor, they treat themselves as owner. So the ownership mindset has to go, and they must think that yes, as an investor, if I am investing my money, what returns it will bring in. So with us also we had this
Very true.
problem. We also face such kind of problems, and when you bring in people like
Very
Rajiv
true.
or
Rajiv, right. In fact, Rajiv used a very appropriate word, which I felt that a promoter himself is an investor,
yeah,
and a promoter has to see that balance he or she needs to balance out as an investor when he or she is expecting other people to invest in his or her company. That was a great thing. Rajiv, coming back to you, I was just writing it down. You used the word capital, and I have one single statement. If you can answer it briefly, manage my capital better because I am an investor in my business. What I'm infusing is capital, and you spent a quite substantial time in explaining qualitative, quantitative. So, how can I manage my capital better?
Yes, sir. That is a very good question, sir. Because ultimately, the investment in a company, whether that investment is of the promoter as an initial investor or an outside investor, ultimately forms part of the capital of the business, and it is the capital by which the ultimate return on investment comes. So obviously, the more efficient I use my capital, the more valuation I can command for my business. And actually, one can look at it from two perspectives. Perspective is whatever size of business I have, how do I use my money more efficiently? That could be like I gave you an example that it might be possible that I might be making some unproductive investments. I should avoid doing that. I should see that wherever my capital is unnecessarily unproductively blocked, I should try to monetize it. Unnecessary investment in inventories, if I can minimize my investment in inventories, if I can have a better terms with my creditors, if I can also make some credit suppliers who can supply me in a short span of time. So
Right.
there is one aspect of managing your capital more efficiently, uh, using your plant to the maximum capacity instead of creating huge capacity and using it for 30% of the capacity or 40%. So unnecessary wastage of money.
Very
And
true. Very true.
or maybe designing the plant in a way that you design it for a certain capacity today which caters to your present requirement but expandable, making some efforts on sitting on the table and doing some planning is better than you just start the business and then you are just taking decisions when the things come on come on your face. Second important aspect is that go as per your limitations. First of all, understand what is your limitations. So people say that scarcity of capital is the biggest problem. So I say that that is a very good problem to have, because scarcity of capital is because in your country or in your business you have good opportunities. So if my size, if I have the the if I am into a business which can grow at the rate of 100%, obviously I will have a capital problem. My business can grow at 5%, obviously I might be able to generate enough profits to fund that growth. The problem of funding comes when the business growth potential is too high. So that is a good problem to have, but at the same time we need to understand how much we are capable of doing. You would find a lot of businesses, they have collapsed because they never understood their limitations. They were too much bullish and they increased their risk tremendously, and they were running on a tight rope that any single wrong step would make them collapse. So we have
You
to
get
make
that,
sure
yes.
that how much we are capable for, and keep our expectations limited and work within that limitations. And if we want to expand beyond that, then get the investor today, instead of getting stuck when the bank is saying that you are in trouble, and then under trouble when you are looking out for investor. So even though I tell you as a valuer that your business is worth this much, but you are so much compelled that you have to sell at a much lesser price. So I've seen many a times that business is worth much more, but they have not given thought at the right time, and when they are too much compelled to sell, they have no choice. Beggars are not choosers. When
You're
you
right. You're right. You're right.
find yourself in a tough situation and then you try to negotiate, the time is gone. So those are few factors one should keep in
No, you're
mind.
right. You're right. We have a couple of businesses in hand. We were discussing yesterday also. They need funds, but obviously they are stuck
Sandeep,
in terms of value proposition.
Murli has a query.
Yeah, Murli, if you can unmute and raise your query.
Hi, yes, yes. I'm audible now.
Yes,
Can you hear
please.
me?
Yes, yes.
We can hear
Hi,
you.
Mr. Rajiv. I just,
Hello.
I would like to hear your insights into. Hi, Mr. Rajiv. What I would like to hear insights into two things basically quickly. One is that you mentioned about the quantitative and qualitative elements of evaluation in any kind of business. Where do you see the human capital when you talk about the qualitative level, human potential? I mean, manpower basically.
Mhm.
One is that. Second thing is you mentioned SOP can be implemented or can be looked into even for SME, small companies. No, I'm a single man army right now. I mean, just launching an e-commerce venture into training and development. But then I definitely see larger things to happen because of scalability and the platform I'm working on. So one is that what is the relevance of human capital in terms of evaluation point of view, qualitative element, and the SOP which you mentioned briefly. What's your take on it? How do you see?
Yes, very good questions, sir. Both of these questions are good. I'll take them one by one. First of all, human capital. In fact, there are some methods through which human capital can also be valued. And there are some companies, of course, they cannot add into your asset side of their balance sheet, but they disclose in their balance sheet by way of notes to accounts that our human capital is having a value of this much. I'll just give you an example. Like when terrorist attack happened in Taj Hotel in Mumbai, so everybody was praising the way their manpower was handling the attitude of the service in those tough moments also impressed the whole world. And there are certain companies like TCS or Infosys. For them, they don't own factories, they own manpower. Their biggest asset is human assets. And many a times we find that the value of a company is because they are having so much qualified resources on board. And hiring or getting so many these kind of scarce resources might be so difficult that they might get valuation because of that aspect itself. Having said that, most of the companies still are not able to actually value their human capital, and because of the inherent difficulties in doing the valuation, when the especially the size of business is not very big, many a times it gets classified as a qualitative aspect. So I also covered in my question as a qualitative aspect, but you are right, it can be valued. There are methods of valuing it. Number 2 point, you said that key how an SOP can be developed for a small business. So that is a misconception in the mind of people that SOP is for a big company only, or sometimes people misunderstand SOPs with some document that a consultant would have given them at the time of some ISO certification or something. Unless that SOP gets implemented, unless they are actually working, unfortunately, that is also a fact that sometimes people get a certification without actually implementing certain things. So unless SOP is basically, what happens, like for example, you have an accountant, you're a very small organization, you have two accountants or one accountant in your company, and your accountant doesn't know how a certain transactions to get processed, and your accountant doesn't know what kind of reports to be given to the management. Now tomorrow that accountant decides to leave. You are a small company, you are not able to retain him. He gets a job of a big company and he goes. New accountant will come. He will say, I have done this in this manner and I will do it in this manner. Suddenly you get confused that so because your organization has no system of its own, the previous accountant was running as his system, the new accountant is running as per his own system. So what was correct for some other company in which he was working before is actually implemented in your company not be as complex which a big organization might have.
Okay.
So your SOP might look different. Your SOP might have certain limitations because जैसे doctors how doctors say that the the side effects of a medicine should be lesser than the benefit of that medicine. If a doctor is giving me a medicine, the side effects are more than the benefit, then what is the benefit?
Right.
Then
Yeah,
I should
yeah,
not take that medicine itself. So likewise, if I implement the SOPs which Reliance would be having to your organization, the side effect of that SOP would be more than the benefit. So
Very true.
even those big
Okay.
organizations are also reviewing their SOPs on a regular basis. So what you get as an SOP today is not going to serve you for your lifetime. That is a main issue,
Correct.
is that every year, even when we do the SOP review for big companies,
You have to review.
then also we find a lot of shortcomings. And on the same
Correct.
SOPs, if they get it reviewed 2 years later, again I will find a lot of shortcomings, because every time the situation
So it's an ongoing
changes.
process rather. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it's an ongoing process because you need to put some attention to certain aspects, and SOP is one of them. And if you are able to minimize the risk to your business by having a good SOP in place, you will ultimately your benefit would be more than its cost. That's important. I means SOP development for a big organization takes a lot of effort and lot of cost. For SOP
True.
for a small company would be different exercise.
I think we are very
Very good, very good. Thank you. You're very clear about it. Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Acharya.
Good question as such. Anything, Mr. Goyal, you would like to point out?
You see, ultimately, as in the last webinar, we were getting into the mind of entrepreneurs.
Yes.
So it is more onto the same line we are coming back, where it is the entrepreneur who is running the show.
Yes.
He is the master.
Absolutely.
If he takes a right call, if he consults good people, if he take proper advice, and if he plans in advance, so probably anything and everything is possible.
Very true.
For this resolve the unsold, basically the forum, as we discussed while forming it, the purpose of this was to get into the mindset of the people, entrepreneurs, and to provoke them to think what they are not thinking. They know, but they are not thinking, they are not applying. So that is what our the purpose is, and I think we are on the right track. We are capturing their, and we are showing them the mindset what you are carrying and what could be the benefit, or if you are not doing this, what you are losing.
Very much. Very much. Very much.
It's definitely serving the purpose, Mr. Goyal. Definitely serving the purpose.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll conclude today's session. It was great. Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you very much
you, sir.
for your time and your insights. Thanks everybody for participating. Thank you, Murli, for your brilliant question. Mr. Goyal, thank you for your time. Okay. See you all next Saturday. Have a nice time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
very much. Thank you. Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.